My purpose is the responsibility, but the passion is the thing that fires you up, that just like has a fire in your belly.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, we welcome back owner and CEO of Idea Health and Fitness, Amy Boone Thompson. And as a leader of a global institute, Amy understands the balance that both purpose and passion play in establishing a truly authentic approach to growth to ready yourself to make impacts felt for years to come. Hello there, and welcome into the most recent installment of Growth Ready. I am so excited to be welcoming in a former guest, I believe three-time guest. She joins an elite club now of four three-time guests on the podcast. So I'm so excited to be reintroducing Amy Boone Thompson to our listeners and to ask her this question, though, for the first time in this new version of the podcast. So Amy, as we get started, as I ask everybody now, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Awesome question. And thank you for having me back for the third time. I feel so honored. So growth ready to me is a state of curiosity. And so for me, that means I always have places to grow in my life, whether it's personal or professional. And if I lead with curiosity at every stage of those different aspects or channels of my life, then it keeps me curious, open-minded, and really, really ready to take in what's next.
And there was something I heard there in that response, which immediately I want to move towards, because you said, if I lead with curiosity. And so I want to start there, because with you having so many, and they're all going to present themselves, all these different areas where you're pursuing growth as we go through this conversation. But when you consider the different roles and responsibilities across Amy's entire life, and you think about, if I lead with curiosity, I'm curious, when do you notice that you maybe lack curiosity? When does that seem to happen more than it maybe you want it to?
I think that the opposite of being curious is to lead with ego, or to lead with a sense of entitlement, or a sense of, I already know all of it, I've already had these experiences. I would say that's probably how it would show up in a professional setting. In a personal setting, I think you just get stale. If you're not growth ready, you really just, you're flat. You're not looking for the next opportunity. You're not truly living life to its fullest if you're living life flat. And so I think that's how it might show up personally, or in your relationships. If you're not excited about the next day, the next hour, the next challenge, then you're probably flat, and you're probably not in a growth mindset, and probably not very curious about what that next day might bring.
Yeah, it's what I've enjoyed about our conversation so far, is that with you working in the fitness industry, it's very much a lifestyle industry, right? And so the professional and the personal line, if you will, is so near, it's so close to one another. It's almost, I would argue, maybe inseparable at times. It's almost 1 minute I'm serving clients as a professional, as a personal trainer, and then I'm going home and being the parent, being the spouse, whatever it may be. And one might argue this approach in one is almost identical to this approach in the other. But I'm really curious, like, for someone who is operating in a space as you are, that the two worlds of personal and professional are so similar, how may one find the ability to separate when you need to separate? Like, is it still possible to get caught up in the professional world and forget, as you say, these personal components that come with just simply life as a whole?
I think that's a really interesting question. And as you were sharing that, I had just a simple side story. Like, Do you remember when Facebook came out and everybody created 2 or sometimes 3 different profiles? Like,
Right.
this is my personal one, this is my professional one. And I'm not joking to you if you still have one, but I realized very quickly that at least in my profession, I couldn't show up authentically as myself at work or at home unless it was all blended together. Because my career is a lifestyle career. Everything I teach, I live. There has to be that level of authenticity. And so to answer your question then, like, yes, everything is blended. I have to be the face of the company. I have to practice what I teach with my children, how I raise my children, how we lead this company. We're a family-led company now, so unfortunately or fortunately, that puts my kids into the spotlight a little bit as well. But for me to show up authentically as a leader, for me to show up authentically as a mother and as CEO of Idea Health and Fitness, I have to. All of those are multifaceted. It's all blended together.
Yeah. And I'm curious, just when you think about how you've navigated that over this time, you were first appointed CEO, then you became owner over time. How have you been able to simply learn that lesson of the importance of authenticity in this role?
For me, I would say early in my leadership career, even before this opportunity came about, I was emulating leadership I saw in others. And I think that's normal as you're in your 20s and 30s and taking your first management or leadership experience. And so, and in my industry, it was very male dominated at the top levels. So I was emulating male leadership. I wasn't necessarily, I didn't give myself permission to show up as my authentic self. I just did what I was told. And this is how you do a coaching session. This is how you help a person through this particular, whatever the example is. But I think it was probably even before I stepped in to lead and acquire Idea, I had an opportunity when I wasn't working for a few months to really step back and examine what I wanted from the next stage of my career, but also who I was as a leader and what was my superpower? What was my secret sauce? If I was good at being a leader, which I thought I was, I hoped I was. I took feedback. I looked at my own life. I took feedback from others, and I really sat back and evaluated myself as a leader. And that was when I realized that my special sauce, if you will, was really showing up as an empathetic leader, as a caring, what I might have gotten writ up as being, you can't be so sensitive, don't be such a caring person. That was my superpower at the end of the day. So now I lead with that. And that was, you mentioned I just had a chance to author a book, and one of my topics, it was a book about gratitude. And I really, again, upon writing that, sat back and looked at an intentional leadership style of gratitude and what that meant and why that was so important in my leadership style. So it's been very intentional, and I've taken some time to evaluate myself through others, and then and really apply that moving forward.
Yeah, and this is an example of some of the things that have been happening in your life in the last couple of years. And it's always funny that when you've had a podcast for 7 years now, you forget how long it's been since you had if you do have people back on, like, how long has it been since we chatted last? And it's literally been over 2 years. And so it's fascinating to me just to see what you've navigated during that time. But one thing I wanted to make sure we didn't do is to sort of rehash what we've already talked about on the show before. And it's why I want to really focus today on this idea of growth. We're a podcast about growth, and here you are now running a company that is connected to over 300,000 fitness professionals. 300,000. Like, consider that number for a second, folks. Like, how many people are potentially being impacted by some of the decisions that you're making, right? And some of these ideas that you have for Idea. And so I'm just curious, like, in this part of your life now, how are you navigating steps around the level, like knowing the level of impact and the amount of people who are being impacted by a decision? What does that process look like for you today when it comes to simply making a decision that you know will impact the direction that idea chooses to take?
Well, first, I'm leading an organization that I was a member of for my entire career. And so not only was I perfectly suited to step into that leadership role and now ownership role, but I lead knowing the exact role of the professional that I'm serving and supporting, knowing all their challenges, all their triumphs, because that was what inspired me to get into this industry. That first job as a personal trainer, where I knew that I was choosing a career where I could make a positive impact, not just in someone's day, but in their entire life. And so because I know the job and well, you'll hear in previous episodes, if you go back, I've held every job in the industry, not just personal trainer, which again made me perfectly suited. But because I've had all of those positions and those roles, I really bring a different perspective to this leadership role. And I truly see myself in that member's shoes before and while and after I make decisions. Now, some of the decisions we've had to make were not very popular. Getting rid of a print magazine that had been around for 43 years and converting it to digital was probably one of the harder changes we had to make. We completely changed our platform, our learning management system with all of our courses and articles. We've made a lot of changes that made us more agile so that we could appeal to the future Fit Pro. And I know in doing so, that may have alienated us from some of the people who've been with us for these past 40 years because we were moving in a digital friendly direction. Not everybody was keen to that or welcoming for that. So I do honestly see myself in my members' shoes with every decision that I make. And I consider it an honor and a big responsibility. And so I don't take that lightly. I belonged to this association for my entire career, again, so I know the platform that it is, that it can be, that it should be, and I take every decision very seriously.
It's a really interesting way to look at it when you think about what. It's one thing to say, hey, what will this decision do to those 300,000 something members? But then to say, well, for one moment before I make that decision, let me put myself back in the shoes of one of these 300,000 members, to say, I've been that member, and what's going to be the benefit to this decision? What's going to be the downside to this decision? How may I respond initially to this decision? How may I benefit from this in time? That there's so many different perspectives to look at that from. And I would have to assume it's enough to sort of sometimes make you feel as though I can't, like almost that an paralysis analysis, right? I mean, you're looking at it from so many different perspectives. How do you maybe navigate those moments where it's like, okay, we're looking at it from so many perspectives. Is there sometimes an argument to be made that there's almost too much of that going on?
Yeah.
It can sometimes allow you to get stuck, potentially?
Yeah, potentially. And if that was probably a downside of my leadership style, I used to analyze decisions way too long and too hard. And I've learned in the last 5 years of ownership, well, actually 3 years of ownership, 5 years of leading this org, that I can't overthink things too much. Sometimes you just have to act. So, there's beta testing, there's surveying. We do a lot of tools to try to mitigate decisions, but I've had to be more agile as a leader. Just like I want this company to be agile, I needed to be more agile to make decisions more quickly. To be honest, though, I do have my own business coach who helps, who helps me so I can bounce ideas, even though they're maybe not as in tune to the industry. At least I can talk things over with someone to make sure it's a good financial or business decision. So, but yeah, I've had to adjust my leadership in that sense to move a little more quickly and not overthink things.
Yeah. And so with that theme of speed, let's say, how do we move? What is the healthy? How do you assess maybe the when you're in that perfect sort of feel of forward momentum, when you're sitting there and you're saying, are we growing fast enough? Are we growing enough? Like when does Amy, or when does your team potentially start assessing the need for, as you put it, some sort of change? Like what are the indicators that now is the time to potentially consider some form of change? So
many different things we look at. So I have, we're looking at data constantly. We're looking at the data of how people are uptaking the content we produce. We're looking at how people are, the readership of our digital journal, the attendance at our in-person events, our total membership numbers. When people leave, why are they leaving? So we're constantly seeking feedback and evaluation and reviewing data. Again, that could paralyze you, or you can use that to inform your decisions. So my leadership team and I, we of course sit down, evaluate the feedback and content. But I think if I did that alone, we wouldn't be growing as fast as we need to, because what we've really had to do is to look into what we believe is the future of this industry and the future needs of the fitness professionals we serve. We've really had to move very quickly to support these professionals and point them in that direction. Otherwise, we stay flat as an industry. Because we set the standards, our organization sets the standards. We identify the trends. We have to be in the trenches, but we also have to be looking so far down the road that we're guiding our professionals. An example of that was someone having a business there where they could train in person and online. So we had to get way ahead of that. Not only how do you train clients online, but what are the technologies you would use? What is the style you need to adopt? Coaching into a camera is very different than coaching in person. So that's one example of something we had to get way ahead of so that we could inform, educate, and empower our professionals to point them safely and effectively in that direction.
Yeah. The weight of an industry. I mean, that's interesting though. I mean, it's again, this is what I've loved about our conversations and how I almost hear the clarity that you speak to in your role each time that we meet, because making decisions on behalf of an organization didn't necessarily come through in any of our previous discussions. And to now hear you speak with that level of clarity that, no, that's actually our role. Our role is to make the types of decisions, and the weight of those decisions truly will impact the direction of this industry, not this company, this industry. How does one find that clarity? Because I hear this conviction in the way you're speaking. I'd love to just learn more about maybe some of that journey of the last couple of years of how you've found this sense of clarity around it's not just about us impacting the business and our members, it's the industry as a whole.
Well, so I got involved with World Active. I don't know if I was doing that the last time we talked. During the pandemic, our industry aligned globally. So we formed the first ever association of associations, if you will. And we have associations from every continent who came together. So fortunately, I was elected to be not only on the council, but to be vice chair and now chair of that World Active initiative. It's really a fancy way of saying I'm just investing a lot of my extra hours that I don't have into advocacy. So what that's taught me, though, is, first of all, the connections that I've been able to make are tremendous, but I'm really getting a front row seat to the challenges and the success that other countries are having, that other associations are having, and what's really moving the needle. We also have been fortunate enough to have a seat at the World Health Organization, and so we can align with those initiatives. So all that said, that's really what's given me the confidence and the conviction to know that I'm leading this association in the right way, because I have that front row seat into everybody's challenges, not just my business challenges, not just the US's industry challenges, but truly, if we are going to get more people healthy and active, there are a lot of steps that all of us need to be taking to get to that point and place. And so that's really what's given me the most confidence and conviction in my leadership.
I love that. And there's a message that comes out of that I think is really important for anyone listening is, how do you get outside of what is familiar to you? Like, I'm really hearing that in that story of, you know, again, as you joke, you don't necessarily have the time. You're already, you know, pretty much crammed week in, week out with the responsibilities you have professionally and personally, and that you see the value of getting outside of what is most familiar to you in idea and making these connections and being able to just simply find another level of exposure that helps you return to what you are familiar with to be of greater value to it. Is that really what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the while, again, keeping my pulse on what's happening on the ground and in the profession here, and what that fitness professional, the one I was in 1997, what that fitness professional needs, because their jobs have changed a lot since I first entered the industry. So again, I've got to stay, I've got to make sure that we're relevant, but we're leading these professionals in the right direction.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So let's make it about Amy here for a second. A lot of what we've been talking about has been very idea. So let's get to Amy now. And 5 years as CEO, 3 years owning, I'm hearing absolutely zero sign of lack of energy, lack of optimism, lack of ambition. How does one in your role continue to fuel oneself to still keep coming back and have, again, third time I'm talking to you like this, and I hear as much energy and conviction as I've ever heard. What does that work look like for you to continue to keep having this level of just what I'm hearing is ambition towards the work that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm super competitive. And so I always am
You can go back to the first episode with the brothers, where there's a whole story there with family. So go first episode.
Yeah. So I want to win. I just want to win. And so that's part of my ambition, is just, I want this platform to be around long after I'm gone. And that I've come to, early on, I came to the realization that this role, this ownership for me, was the perfect alignment of my purpose and my passion. So when you're in that state of flow, then it really does light me up every single day that I get to do what I absolutely love, that I know is meaningful for myself, for my family, for the industry. But that is the competitive side of me. I also, it isn't without its challenges. We've had tremendous business challenges, industry challenges. So all of that I've learned to take in stride and not let it. I just am able to, at the end of the day, yes, it's business, but I believe we're doing more important, meaningful work than just any old business. So to me, it's that, yes, I can take all those challenges in stride because we have this deeper purpose and this deeper mission that I'm perfectly aligned with. And by the way, I wouldn't rather be doing anything. If I look at what would I do if I sold Idea? I don't know. What would I do? This is the perfect marriage of everything I've worked for my whole career. And it's so aligned with my passion. My husband's a strength coach. My kids are athletes. This is absolutely our lifestyle. And so we're all kind of vibrating at this really high frequency, being able to be leaders in this space because it's so aligned to what we do. So I think that's what fuels me, is that it's so aligned and I'm so competitive.
Yeah, I love that. And again, one of my favorite first memories of us is when you told me about all the brothers when you're growing up, and you were the only sister. Is that right? Am I wrong?
No. 5 boys, 5 girls.
That was it. Was something about it that was just blew my mind away, and I was like, "It's this sheer amount of children we're talking about." That's what we're talking about. Yes. So it was survival of the fittest, clearly.
That's right.
And so competition was just part of what you were used to. And by the way, for anyone listening, if you are curious, we will have links to both the first 2 episodes that Amy was on the show in the show notes, so you can access that. Because I have no doubt, if you listen to this for the first time, you're like, well, I want to know more about this lady. So, so we will have that for you. But something I want you to do here for us is that the way you frame that was it's in alignment with my purpose and my passion. Mm-hmm. And I've actually done a couple of speeches on how I see the differences of these 2 words. So whenever I hear that, I'm like, okay, we need to immediately double click on that, because I would love for you now to simply help us or help our listeners understand if we hear this word purpose and we hear this word passion, that they are in fact 2 different words. They are those kind of words that can sometimes get used interchangeably, but I can see you nodding right now. And so I'd love for you to maybe help our listeners better understand, from your perspective at least, when you say purpose, what do you mean? And when you say passion, what do you mean? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for purpose, to me, that is, I align with the word responsibility. And so I used it a couple times already. I have a responsibility to keep this platform. It's on my shoulders right now. So purpose is, I know that this responsibility that I've accepted, that I was prepared for, that I'm also aligned with, it's on my shoulders to lead at this point. So that's what I mean by purpose, and I'm all in, right? So you can have a purpose that you're not in alignment with, but I'm all in on this purpose of I was in that chair at the right time to accept this ownership so I can lead the association forward for something I'm really passionate about. So passion to me is, like we just talked about a minute ago, like that's the feeling that I get, that is the fire inside my belly. Passion means, like, what else would I be doing? It fires me up, it fuels me, it gives me energy, as much energy as it might take, it still gives me back energy. So that's how I define the two. My purpose is the responsibility, but the passion is the thing that fires you up, that just like has a fire in your belly.
Yeah, I love that. And one way I've always tried to frame it is it's like the purpose is beneath the surface and the passion is what we see above the surface. You know, everyone sees that fire every day, right? But that the only way we see that fire is by having that anchor, by having that that foundation of self and just awareness. But I actually have never heard it, at least on the show, explained around this notion of a responsibility. I'm curious, when did that part of this make sense to you? Because I think that's such an important insight for our listeners. Is it's one thing to feel purpose, but one thing I hear so often, whether it be from listeners or from folks in my world, is, you know, I feel like I'm lacking, my purpose is lacking right now. I don't feel the purpose that I used to feel. And something that you're saying here is that there's this next level almost of purpose of saying, it isn't this thing that you can just assume is going to stay. You almost need to accept the importance of holding on to it and making it. So I'd love for you just to build upon that for us.
Yeah. Well, for me in my career, I realized early on that not only was fitness and wellness where I wanted to be, we talked about my turn from sport to fitness and wellness and how they're connected, but I knew that I needed to be on this side of the house because we were so focused on prevention and really helping people lead more meaningful lives. And so then after a couple of different roles in the industry, and I had my first management role, that was when I realized that I was going to invest my career into the professional and their business rather than be the person that's influencing the direct consumer. So I went from having my own clients to then become a manager of personal trainers who had their own clients. Right. And then I had several times in my career where I was working through people to help other people. But I knew all along that was where I needed to be. I'm in a position where I can inspire people to inspire others to move. And that's when you can have bigger impact. So I would add the word impact to my purpose. Like, sure, there would be other things that I might find purpose in. And I have other interests in my life, believe me. But what I find purpose in is that I have the ability to create impact that can impact millions. Those 303,000 fitness professionals can impact millions of people to have strong, healthy, meaningful lives. And so I can't think of a better gift. A surgeon can help one person. I could have gone down those paths. I could have done a lot of things. I still can, but I just find so much purpose in knowing that my work has a ripple effect that impacts millions.
Yeah. And hey, we may not be a health and fitness podcast, but whenever I can have every 15 to 20 episodes, maybe someone come on that's coming from that industry, I'm always going to welcome it with open arms, because you know this about me, it's a big part of my life. Health and wellness has to matter in some way. And you even being on this, you're already impacting a few hundred other people just by simply being on our show and talking to this sort of stuff. I think that's what for me is so fascinating about the position you're in right now, because funnily enough, it makes me think of my education journey, because the further I went with education, the more education made sense to me. So what I mean by that is that the more specific it got, the more into it I became. High school and before that, I really wasn't a great student because it was it was too much gray. It was just too much. What's it going to be today? And then I suddenly became, when I was doing my master's degree, I ate it up, and the way it was being done, the topics that were being taught to me, it was everything I wanted, and I was now operating more of my unique ability. But when I hear your story, Amy, it's almost like every time you've leveled up, you've almost stepped more and more into your unique ability. It's as though you had to go through being the fitness instructor and being the athlete to get to where you are today. But now where you've arrived is as the most suitable position you could have possibly been in. And that's what, I mean, do you feel that in your story?
Yes, but I wouldn't ever use the word arrived because I still feel like just in the middle of my journey. Like, but yes, all those opportunities and experiences, I am so grateful for because they led me to this chair and this seat today where I'm finding the perfect alignment of this passion and purpose, as we've explained. But there's so much more in the future that we can do, that I can do, that needs to be done. And this association is the platform whereby we can accomplish a lot of that work.
Yeah, absolutely. And this feels like a nice, potentially natural segue to the book. And mainly because, well, the first time you joined us, I was doing a series around women changing the world. And so I just had my daughter. I was just like, go girl power, this whole thing. And I was just like, I want as many women on the show as possible, and let's talk about it. And here you are now, having written this book, Lead Like a Woman. You were part of a number of different authors who wrote the book. And what you're speaking to here, I think, very much resonates with some of the biggest issues in leadership for women, is that maybe the position you're in today isn't the position that you should be in. There's a position many, many more levels up or along your journey that you truly are made for. But sadly, history would show is that they don't necessarily get there or aspire to get there. And so I would love to learn a bit about the book, but also just about what I always like to ask people, anyone who's involved in the book, is why you and why now? Like, why Amy, and why now is the time to be a part of this?
Beautiful, beautiful question. So why Amy and why now? First of all, the book is Lead Like a Woman, Grateful. There's a whole series, and this particular one is the Grateful edition. There's 2 volumes. We had 20 different authors. So I was selected as an author because of the woman who is the collaborator for these was one of my speaker coaches when I was preparing to get onto my first big stage. Nice. So she helped me with that, and then she has this podcast and a book. And what I was most excited about contributing, one, again, I used it as an opportunity to reflect, to think about my own leadership style and what I wanted to share, what I've learned and what I wanted to share. And that was like, why now? Because I have so much to be grateful for from the experiences that led me to this point. But I do see gratitude as it's an exercise. It's an intention that you choose or you don't choose. And I've learned to appreciate gratitude, to express gratitude at work and with my employees. And I've learned to use this gratitude as a tool for my own growth and my team. And I wanted to share that. And really the book was an opportunity to step back again and reflect and learn and then express that.
I love that. I love that. Why do you think we have such a hard time? I mean, I ask this all the time, and here I am doing what I do today. I'm constantly telling clients, hey, acknowledge what you did. Hey, show gratitude for what you did. Like, why do we have such a hard time in your experience with just simply practicing? And I love how you put it as a practice. Like, why do we have such a hard time practicing gratitude?
I don't know. I mean, Oprah taught us to do it well a few years back. There was the whole gratitude journal and all the things. But I think just for myself, again, I was never taught to express gratitude with leadership. I was taught that gratitude is something you do with your close friends and family, but not at work. Or if you did, it was just not something that, I don't know, it was just never really encouraged that I would be grateful or express it in that way in a caring manner. Sure, it's one thing to say, hey, we appreciate you, you're appreciated at work, but to call out a very specific thing that an employee did, to show gratitude in the moment, and most importantly, to show gratitude face to face, and not just screen to screen and not just phone to phone, but to be able to express gratitude face to face. That's something I've learned to do in my career, and it's very intentional, and I'm not fake about it. I'm only expressing authentic gratitude when it's appropriate. But it's something again, I think we just were never encouraged in leadership, at least for myself.
Yeah, and what I really appreciate about that description is it immediately raises the value of the sign of gratitude because of the intentionality behind it. It's not something you're just throwing it around. You're not just sending Starbucks gift cards out to people every single week for the sake of the work that they've done. You are so intentional and so specific that anybody receiving that gratitude knows the extent that you went to articulate it the way you did. And firstly, as an act of leadership, it's incredible. But secondly, I am curious as to maybe how you do that for yourself. Like, is this a practice that comes easy to you now that you're doing it for others? Are you able to do it for yourself?
I've always shown gratitude in my relationship with my husband, of course, my children. So that came very naturally. I would say, though, with leadership, it really blossomed when I became an owner, because I've become more vulnerable as a leader, going through all the challenges that an owner goes through. And I'm incredibly grateful that the people who've chosen to go along this ride with me will show up day after day when they don't have maybe the same risks I'm taking or the same, the ownership or whatever. They show up day after day with such incredible conviction and passion. And so I think that's when it really blossomed, when I became an owner and I realized, I'm not doing this for any other business. I'm doing this because I believe in it so deeply. And the employees who have stood by me through these 3 years also believe in the work we do so deeply.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Okay, so assuming we may go another 2.5 years before we do this interview again, that's typically our pace.
Okay.
Over the next 2.5 years, as you look ahead now, what's in store for you if you were let's use a word from a previous episode that you've used. If you were manifesting
Yes.
this into the next 2.5 to 3 years for you, what does growth look like for you?
Well, I started hosting my own podcast now. I had other hosts doing it, so that's been some area I've grown. And so I'll have to have you on our podcast for our show, but I'm going to keep growing the podcast. Mainly just it's a more modern way at reaching our audience. I'm growing our YouTube channel. We have so much content, but we're not doing as much of it in video, so we'll keep evolving in video. I have my own book collaboration coming with our trademark Inspire the World to Fitness. So you can watch for that in the next 12 months. But most importantly is the work we have to do as an industry. And that is to make movement, health, fitness, wellness accessible for everybody and help more people enjoy the benefits of health and wellness. And so to me, that means growing our membership to support more professionals. It means all these initiatives that I do on the side with World Active, that we keep that going so we can support one another as an industry, that we keep holding hands with World Health Organization. There's so much that's so big that we want to keep doing, but that's where my North Star is I want to make movement and health and wellness accessible for every human.
I love that. And that has been a consistent message in all 3 of our episodes. But one thing I love about it is coming back to your initial response to that first question around curiosity, is that you can hear it there in terms of what you're committed to. There's going to be many new or first time experiences coming your way if that's going to be where you're heading. And it's going to come with unknowns. It's going to come with uncharted territory. And then we step into that with curiosity. It doesn't seem as daunting. It seems possible. As opposed to a problem, it seems like a possibility. And I think that's what I love about that response there, is that for anyone listening to this, for everything that you are now overseeing, responsible for, you've achieved, a simple look into the future and to see it from curiosity and with possibility. I don't know. As I'm hearing that, I'm hearing somebody, again, clear, convicted. I'm sure there's going to be some stresses and some challenges that come along the way. But at the same time, I'm hearing a sense of joy and excitement and fulfillment around what's coming for you in the future.
Absolutely. I can't wait every single day. Like I said, I have a fire in my belly, and I want more and more people to jump on this platform with me.
Love it. Love it. Well, I am grateful for you. I'm grateful every time we get this opportunity to talk. It is truly helpful for me. It reminds me of a number of things as I navigate all these different chapters of my life too. I have no doubt any business owner, any leader that's listening to this, which is the majority of our audience, quite frankly, they're going to be getting some insights, which is going to force them to think a little differently. And that's what I'm all about on this show. Can we just challenge people to think a little differently in the way in which they navigate growth and what it means to be ready for it? So Amy, as always, so thankful for you. And before I let you go, please tell us firstly where we can find the book Lead Like a Woman Grateful. And also, if there's anything else that we need to know about IDEA and your world, don't forget to mention that as well.
Oh, yes. Lead Like a Woman is in Amazon. Go to Grateful Edition Volume 1, and there's hard paperbacks there, or you can get an Audible. You can find me, Amy Boone Thompson, across any of the social media channels, and our company is IDEA Fit in all the social media. That's IDEAFIT, IDEA Health and Fitness Association, and it's also IDEA Fit's our URL. And last but not least, we have our big annual event coming in July. This year we are in Sacramento, California, our state capital. It's July 17th through the 19th, and it's where thousands of fitness leaders and professionals are coming together to learn, to grow, and to connect.
I love it. I just learned something. I didn't know Sacramento was the state capital of California. How about that? I mean, I am British, so, I have an excuse for not knowing that. Amy, as always, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your generosity of insight, for your time, and just best of luck with everything moving forwards.
Thank you.
And my thanks again to Amy for joining us on this episode of Growth Ready. Something specific that Amy said there towards the end that I really want to reemphasize and leave you with in closing is, what does it mean to you to practice gratitude? That's right. Gratitude is a practice of some sort. It is not something you just have from time to time, especially if you want those around you to feel impacted by the way in which you see them and the value that you have in what it is they maybe do for you. Furthermore, how are you practicing it towards yourself? What value do you see in the day that has gone by? A simple practice for me this year was that of journaling. I'm not journaling in terms of just open-ended thoughts. I'm actually very specific about 4 or 5 items that I want to simply acknowledge at the end of my day. One of which is gratitude. I just put the word gratitude down, a line, and then I list something that I have gratitude towards that particular day. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a set of circumstances, sometimes it's toward a result. It can be just about anything. But it is a practice, and it's amazing when you start to be intentional about the way you navigate gratitude, how you start to notice things you're more grateful for. So think about gratitude as a practice in itself. Have intentionality towards it so that as you practice it, you start to notice it more and more, you share it more and more, and as I alluded to in the conversation there with Amy, you start to put a greater value on it as well. And those that receive it certainly see that value and have that appreciation for you displaying it at the same time. So again, my thanks to Amy for joining us, and as always, my thanks to you for being part of this episode. Take the time to share the episode. If you're a first-time listener, take the time to start subscribing. Leave a rating of what you thought about our discussion. Typically, it's a 5-star discussion, and this was certainly an example of exactly that. Leave the rating, leave a review, and be sure to share the episode with folks in your network as well that you know can stand to learn from the insights provided by Amy today. Again, best of luck with anything and everything going on within your world. I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.